Contains duplicate in JavaScript. So given an array nums, return true if any value appears at least twice in the array, and return false if every element is distinct. So for the first example, they gave us an array with a duplicate of 1, so we return true. Example 2, they don't have any duplicates, so we are going to return false. And of course, if there are multiple of the same number, more than 2, it is still going to be true. So the way I broke this down in my head initially was to just loop through, remove the element that we were checking, and then check the rest of the elements, right? So if the array given to us was 1, 2, 3, 1, what I would do is remove the 1, remove it out so that 2, 3, and 1 were left, and say, hey, is 1 still included in this array? And obviously it is, so we would return true. The issue with this is that this would require us to remove the actual element. So we would have to splice our array, and then we would have to check if it includes. And the issue I found with this one is mostly speed. It is quite slow to run these processes each iteration, especially if we do have a longer array. So we're going to go ahead and nix that one. So we want to come up with some sort of method that we can simply run one operation on it to check if the actual number exists as a duplicate. So the second thing that comes to mind is to take our array, simply going to grab this, grab whatever index we're on, and store it in a separate array. So this will be a constant. Each iteration, what we'll do is we'll grab that and store it in here. And what we're going to do is check if it already exists, right? So we're on our first iteration 1. We're going to see, hey, does this array exist? Or does that value exist in the array? Right now it's empty, so it doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to store it in there for now. Go to our second index, and we're going to say 2. All right, let's check the array. Does 2 exist in there? The answer is no. So we're going to store it. And then we're going to do 3. It doesn't exist. And 4, right? So there obviously is no. But let's say this is 1. We're on our 4th iteration. Okay, we're going to take 1 and say, okay, does this array include a 1? And it does. So we would return true that it does include a duplicate. Okay, so let's break this down into a bit of code. It is a bit straightforward if you follow these guidelines. First of all, I want to set a value that we can actually return at the end of the function. So duplicate exists, I think, is a fitting name. And we want it to be false, because if we don't find anything, then we set it. And then what we're going to want to do is actually set up our empty array outside of the for loop. And we'll just call this indexed, just because we're indexing the actual values into an array. We can go ahead and set up our for loop. And we want to increase by 1 iteration. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is we want to recall that we're going to grab the actual number, which would be nums of whatever index we're on. That would grab the 1 in the first instance. And we want to check if it's included in our indexed array, which is right here, right? So let's see. Indexed includes nums. And this will return true if that already exists, which would mean it's a duplicate. So what we need to do is, if that number already exists in there, it means it's a duplicate, and we need to reassign it exists true. Otherwise, let's go ahead and add that value, right? Because if it didn't exist in there, then we're going to add it. So then we just indexed push our. So essentially, does it already exist in here? Yes. Then there is a duplicate. If it doesn't, push it. Go ahead and return our duplicate exists variable. Let's just run through this to make sure we all understand. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 1, and we'll just shorten it just for the sake of time. So for first index of 0, we grab our 1. And what this does is we check indexed, which is right here. Does it include the value of 1? Right now it's empty, right? So like this would be our current state of our indexed. Does it include it? No, it does not include that. So that's false. So we go to our else, and we're going to go ahead and push it. So for the sake, we added a 1. We're going to go to our second indice 2. Does it include it? No, it doesn't. It's just a 1. Okay, then we need to push it. So then we add our, go to our third indice, which is a 1. Is 1 included? Is 1 included? And we see that it is right here. So if we were to add this, which we don't need to, but because it gets caught here, and it says yes, duplicate exists because there is a 1 already in this array. So we set it to true, and eventually we will return duplicate exists, and this should work. We have an issue. Duplicate. This is set as a constant. Make sure that is a let so that it can be redefined. And we can see that we got a success. So this is the most straightforward way I have found to answer this question, and I hope this helps.